control points to intercept the crimes.
Question 5, Ms. Maggie Chen. The government increased the child care center parent subsidy to a maximum of $1,000 per month in April 2024 and further expanded the school-based after-school care service scheme in the 2025-2026 school year. As at February this year, there were already 205 primary schools participating in the scheme, providing over 10,000 service places. Regarding strengthening of support for working families in childbearing, will the government inform this council, 1, of the number of cases that have received the child care center parent subsidy in full since April 2024, among them the proportion of infants and toddlers from birth to under the age of 2 who have been benefited. 2. Given that under the scheme, care services on weekdays are provided until 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. and may be extended to 7 p.m. in individual schools, whether the government has plans for extending the service hours of the scheme to 7 or even 8 p.m. across the board. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. And 3. Given the large population size of the northern metropolis in future, whether the government has plans to enhance the standard planning ratio for childcare centers and the overall supply of childcare service places in the northern metropolis. If so, of details, if not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Labor and Welfare. President, to support parents in taking care of their children, the government subsidizes NGOs to provide a variety of day childcare services, including full-day childcare center services, after-school care program, and extended hours service for school-age children, the district-based and flexible occasional childcare service, and neighborhood support childcare project, as well as the school-based after-school care service scheme to meet the different needs of parents and children. In recent years, the government implemented a series of measures to enhance child care services, including reforming child care services, increasing the number of service places, and providing additional professional manpower resources to respond to the community's demand for child care services. The Labor and Welfare Bureau and Social Welfare Department are trying their very best to implement measures of the 2025 policy address to strengthen daycare services for infants and toddlers. The reply to the member's question is as follows. 1. The child care center service provides long-hour daycare services for children aged from birth to under 3 years in a safe, stimulating learning environment. As at the Q1 of 2026, there are a total of about 43,000 childcare center service places in Hong Kong, among which about 8,700 are provided by 21 aided standalone childcare centers and 242 aided childcare centers attached to kindergarten subsidized by the government. The Social Welfare Department also funds some of these centers to provide about 460 places and 2,400 extended hour service places for pre-primary children to support parents who cannot take care of their children because of sudden engagements or long working hours. The government introduced the child care center parent subsidy in February 2020 and has increased the subsidy from a maximum of $600 to $1,000 per month since April 2024 to alleviate parents' financial burden. There are about 10,000 beneficiaries every year. The parent subsidy is non-means tested and is dispersed through the aided childcare centers. The Social Welfare Department will disperse parent subsidy to the aided childcare centers where the children are enrolled to directly offset a portion of the children's monthly fees until they cease to receive full-day aided childcare center services. In the 2024-25 and 2025-26 financial years, a total of about 22,400 cases receive parent subsidy of $1,000 in full. The children aged below 2 accounts for an average of about 11% of the beneficiaries. 2. The government launched the school-based after-school care service scheme in the 2023-24 school year to allow primary students with needs to stay after school for care and learning support and ease pressure on parents or guardians in caring for and supervising their children. The scheme was expanded to cover 126 primary schools in all 18 districts in the 2024-25 school year and uncapped the number of service places in the 2025-26 school year to support primary students and parents in need. As at end May 2026, 207 primary schools have joined the scheme, providing over 10,500 service places. Under the current arrangements, service operators are required to provide at least 3 hours of after-school care service daily from Monday to Friday, depending on the dismissal time of individual participating schools. Operating hours generally end between 6 and 6:30 p.m. The service hours may be extended to 7 p.m. if school conditions permit. If individual students have needs, the service operators will make appropriate arrangements. 3. In accordance with the planning ratio stipulated in the Hong Kong Planning Standards and Guidelines, 100 aided child care center places for children under the age of 3 will be provided for every 25,000 people. The Social Welfare Department reserves suitable premises for the provision of child care centers in new development areas. For developed areas, the Social Welfare Department will take into account the overall provision of child care services and the characteristics of individual districts when planning services, including number of service places, utilization rates, land supply situation, and demographic changes to better meet the service demand of the community. Since non-aided childcare centers currently offer more service places for children aged 2 or above, the Social Welfare Department will, on the premise of ensuring efficient use of public resources, allocate more service places for infants under 2 when planning for new aided standalone childcare centers. If the childcare center is smaller in size, all service places will be dedicated to caring for children aged below 2. Currently, there are a total of 21 aided standalone childcare centers in Hong Kong, providing 1,536 service places. The Social Welfare Department is setting up 15 additional aided standalone childcare centers in different districts, including North District and Yuen Long in phases. It is estimated a total of about 1,500 additional service places will be provided progressively by the end of 2029, almost doubling the existing supply. Thank you, President. Ms. Maggie Chen. Thank you, Chair. I think the government is taking the right direction in enhancing care for infants and toddlers. I can see the Secretary is committed, but from current data, we have inadequate coverage and there is uneven distribution or a mismatch in distribution. We have especially a shortage for support for infants and toddlers aged between 0 and 2 years old. We have approximately 43,000 service places available according to the main reply, but it does not specifically point out only 1,536 places are of places not attached to kindergartens. So there are only 1,536 places for infants and toddlers aged between 0 and 2 years old. And according to the main reply, we have some 22,400 cases receiving parent subsidy of $1,000 in full, but 11%, only 2,464 cases are for children aged below 2. So it shows there is a serious shortage for care places for children aged below 2. In the last paragraph, it says by 2029, there will be 1,500 additional service places provided, almost doubling the existing supply, but the total will just be 3,000, even with the addition. If we look at this year, we have 31,100 newborn babies. So this increase in supply is definitely inadequate. My question is, if the government has more plans to add more service places for children aged below 2, and will you have regard to demographic data to reprovision the childcare centers for children aged below 2 to reprovision some of the centers in areas with greater demand or commercial areas to prevent a mismatch in demand and supply. Thank you, President. Please be succinct in your question and reply. Thank you. Secretary, as we can see, there is great demand for aided standalone childcare centers for children aged below 2. As the member pointed out, which is why when we add service places, the majority will be for children aged below 2 to help families with children aged between 0 and 2. We will try our best to have more aided standalone childcare centers in future. Thank you. Dr. Simon Lee, thank you, President. Childcare centers and after-school care service scheme work well to provide support, and I can see the government has been enhancing supply. But according to recent papers provided by the administration, and as we discussed at a panel on welfare services meeting before, we have differing utilization rates and supply of childcare services. What is the administration's current mechanism for adjusting service provision? Thank you. Secretary, thank you, Dr. Simon Lee, for your questions. There are multiple factors considered. We would have some areas that with existing centers that would have supply. We will try to provision new childcare centers at appropriate locations. We will soon commence operations of a center in Changkwano and another in Leyumun and Kuntong. We have also plans for centers to commence operation in North District and Yunlong in the next few years to help families with needs. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Fan. Thank you, President. To be family friendly, we can not only have the government launch initiatives, other sectors in the community should help. Will the government have incentives for private sector companies such as tax concessions so that they can provide welfare for their employees that are family friendly, for example, to provision some space in the workplace for care for children of the employees or classes? Or are there plans of the administration to mobilize the private sector to provide more family friendly practices? Secretary, thank you, Mr. Fan. We are taking this direction as well. But it is actually not easy to provide childcare centers because there are very stringent statutory requirements. We have one at the airport and we have another one with the largest bank in Hong Kong. If there are other organizations who would like to do this, we are more than willing to help. Well, for employers who want to implement family-friendly practices, they already have some sort of flexible arrangements for their employees. Thank you. Mr. Wu Yingpeng. Thank you, President. I want to ask if the government will provide to participating schools of the school-based after-school care service scheme dedicated subsidies so that we will have more schools participating and we'll have a certain number of schools in each district to provide after-school care service. Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Wu, for your question. Schools don't really need to invest in resources. They only need to provide space, and we do provide some subsidies for operations of NGOs through the Community Care Fund. We have seen with the implementation of the scheme for several years, many schools are responding positively to this, and we should have more primary schools participating in the scheme in future. Thank you. Mr. Ken Wong, we have seen a significant increase in the number of service places for after-school care services. We have NGOs facing difficulties of losing their teachers, and they are heavily reliant on part-time teachers or tutors. With the classes provided to students, we need professional knowledge and skills. Will the government provide additional resources to frontline teachers so that they will be trained to provide support to students with different needs, specifically training for children with special education needs? Secretary, thank you, Mr. Wong, for the questions. If the children have special education needs, we still have some of tutors that can accommodate these children engaged by NGOs. A lot of NGOs operate different social welfare services, which is why we engage NGOs in providing the after-school care services, because they can make use of the existing resources to provide support to the youth and students. And of course, we also have specific requirements for NGOs to make sure the tutors can accommodate the needs of different students. Thank you. Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Thank you, President. We have funding for the after-school care service scheme coming from the Community Care Fund, and parents have to make applications every year. Unfortunately, some of them may not be allotted service places in the following year. Will we convert the model operation? Instead of relying on the Community Care Fund for funding, we will have the Social Welfare Department provide recurrent funding so that parents can have stable services. Thank you. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Lam. The Community Care Fund pilots some funding schemes. We believe there are benefits to this. And the after-school care service scheme is operated on this model. As we see the scheme implemented for a little longer, we may consider converting to recurrent funding from making use of a community care fund for funding at an appropriate timing. Thank you. Mr. Chong Ho Feng, thank you, President. The after-school care service scheme is a great policy, and the government already said if primary schools are willing to participate in the scheme, they will provide unwavering support, and parents greatly appreciate this. We also have children being taken care of in child care centers. If the government is willing to invest in the resources, why not have after-school care services in kindergartens? Thank you. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Chong, for the question. We have suggestions saying we should expand the scope to kindergartens or even junior secondary schools. I think we should focus our resources on the primary school stage for now before extending the arrangements, because as we all know, primary school students face the challenge of a significant workload in primary schools when they transition to secondary schools and when they transition from kindergartens. We want them to lay good foundations. We do appreciate the different feedback, but we would like to focus on primary school stage for now. Thank you. Dr. Elvin Lee, thank you, President. The after-school care service scheme has had great results, and we can see this benefit parents and students, and it facilitates harmonious familiar relationships. There is feedback that we can provide on top of homework support, emotional counseling, and family support through the after-school care service scheme. Would the government consider developing the scheme in this direction to enhance relevant services? Thank you. Secretary, thank you, member, for the questions. We can see with learning support provided by the after-school care service, we can help students complete homework, but students want to play after completing their homework, and we should give them that because that is their wish. If we do not have playtime, they would think it is too harsh for them. But I appreciate where Dr. Elvin Lee is coming from. We can perhaps provide some emotional support. Sometimes parents work part-time jobs, they do not have good training. If we can gather them, perhaps the Employees Retraining Board can provide some information for parents who are seeking jobs to get information for retraining. We can have some sort of synergy. We want to seize the opportunity to do that. But for children in particular, playtime is very important. Let them play after doing their homework. Thank you.
Last question seeking